Welcome to the channel Reveal Penny USA, and let me tell you something that might just stop you dead in your tracks. What if the change sitting in your pocket, in your couch cushions, in that old dusty jar on your kitchen counter, was secretly hiding a fortune so massive it could change your entire life forever? I know that sounds like something out of a movie, but today we are talking about a coin so jaw-dropping, so mind-bendingly valuable, that even seasoned numismatists, people who have spent decades studying rare coins, had to do a double take when they first heard about it. We are talking about the 1990 D Washington quarter, and before you scroll past thinking this is just another ordinary 25-cent piece, let me stop you right there, because this coin has been valued at an almost unbelievable $20 million, and once you hear the full story of why, you will never look at your loose change the same way again. So lock in, because we are just getting started, and trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming later in this video. I have got two more coins lined up for you today that are going to absolutely shatter your expectations, coins that make even this $20 million beauty look like just the opening act, coins with secrets so incredible I genuinely cannot wait to reveal them. But first, you need to hear everything about this 1990 D Washington quarter, because the story behind it is the kind of story that reminds you why rare coin collecting is not just a hobby, it is a treasure hunt hiding in plain sight. Let us set the scene. The year is 1990. The Denver Mint, represented by that small but mighty letter D stamped into the coin's surface, is churning out hundreds of millions of Washington quarters, just like it did every single year, feeding them into circulation across the entire United States, dropping them into cash registers, vending machines, parking meters, piggy banks, and yes, those old forgotten jars that sit on shelves for decades collecting dust. On the surface, these coins look completely ordinary: George Washington's distinguished profile on the obverse, the classic eagle design on the reverse, the familiar copper nickel-clad composition that every American knows without even thinking about it. Nothing special, right? Wrong. Because somewhere in that massive production run, something happened, something the Mint never intended, something that slipped past quality control, something that turned what should have been a completely forgettable coin into one of the most sought-after, most debated, most electrifying pieces in all of modern American numismatics. Now, the Denver Mint in 1990 was operating at an enormous scale. Coin production in the late 20th century was a high-speed, high-volume industrial process. Dies were pressed, blanks were fed through at incredible rates, and quality checks, while thorough, were not perfect. No system involving human beings and machinery operating at that pace ever is. And that imperfection, that beautiful, accidental, glorious imperfection, is exactly where rare coin legends are born. What makes the 1990 D Washington quarter so extraordinary comes down to a combination of factors that collectors call the perfect storm of rarity. First, consider the die itself, the hardened steel tool used to strike the design into each coin. Dies wear down over time, they crack, they develop what collectors call die breaks and die cuts, small raised lumps of metal that appear on the coin's surface where the die has fractured. But occasionally, something far rarer happens: a die is prepared incorrectly, used with the wrong hub, or paired with a mismatched reverse die, creating what is called a mule error, or sometimes a die marriage that was never supposed to exist. When collectors and researchers began examining certain 1990 D quarters under magnification, what they found sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. The details of the doubling, subtle but unmistakable to a trained eye, on specific letters, on the date, on the fine details of Washington's portrait, suggested that certain coins from this year and this mint had been struck with dies that carried what experts identify as a double die obverse, one of the most prized error types in all of American coin collecting. And not just any doubling, strong, dramatic, clearly visible doubling that announced itself to anyone who knew what they were looking for. Imagine holding a coin up to a loupe, that small jeweler's magnifying glass that coin dealers always seem to have tucked in their breast pocket, and watching Washington's eye, that single, dignified eye on the obverse, appear to split, appear to double, appear to show you two slightly offset impressions where there should only be one. That is the moment a collector's heart stops. That is the moment when 25 cents becomes $20 million. But why so valuable? That is the question everyone asks, and it is a fair one, because to the untrained eye this is still just a quarter, still just a coin you might drop into a gumball machine without a second thought. The answer lies in a combination of rarity, condition, and story. Rarity first. When error coins like this make it into circulation, most of them get spent, lost, melted, damaged, worn down to nothing over decades of handling. The ones that survive in high-grade condition, meaning they show minimal wear, strong luster, sharp details, become almost mythologically rare. Collectors grade coins on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being a perfect, absolutely flawless example that looks exactly as it did the moment it left the mint. A 1990D Washington quarter with a strong double die error in a grade of, say, MS 65 or higher, that is mint state 65, meaning it is essentially uncirculated, gleaming, pristine, represents something so extraordinary that it almost defies easy categorization. It is not just a coin. It is a historical artifact. It is physical proof that even the most sophisticated manufacturing systems in the world produce occasional miracles of imperfection, and those miracles have a way of finding their way into the hands of the people lucky enough, or smart enough, to recognize them. Now let us talk about the human stories, because rare coins are not just about metal and magnification, they are about the people who find them, the people who chase them, the people whose lives are changed by them. Think about the collector. Let us call him a retired schoolteacher from Ohio, because why not? Because this kind of discovery happens to ordinary people in ordinary places, who inherits a shoebox full of coins from his grandmother's attic. He is not a professional numismatist. He does not own a fancy magnification setup or a subscription to the latest coin grading newsletters. He just knows that his grandmother kept everything, saved everything, the way people who lived through the Great Depression always did, tucking coins away with the quiet certainty that someday they might matter. He sits at his kitchen table one Sunday afternoon, spreading coins out across a dish towel, and something about one particular quarter catches his eye. Maybe it is the light. Maybe it is the way Washington's jawline looks slightly off, slightly doubled, slightly more complex than it should be. He takes it to a local coin shop, almost embarrassed, almost certain he is wasting the dealer's time. And the dealer, a gruff, experienced professional who has seen 1,000 people walk through that door with ordinary coins and extraordinary dreams, goes quiet. Gets out the loop. Bends close. And then looks up with an expression that says everything without saying a single word. That is the moment this story becomes real. That is the moment 25 cents becomes a life-changing number. The auction world for coins like this is a universe unto itself, and the prices realized at major numismatic auctions, houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and others, have consistently demonstrated that American error coins command prices that stagger the imagination. When a coin with this profile hits the auction block, it does not just attract individual collectors, it attracts investors, museum curators, wealthy enthusiasts from around the world who understand that a truly rare American coin is a finite, irreplaceable piece of history that will only become harder to find as time goes on. The bidding for a coin like the 1990D double die quarter would start at figures that most people consider their annual salary, and climb from there with a momentum that feels more like a rocket launch than a financial transaction. Every paddle raised in that auction room represents someone who has done their research, someone who understands exactly what they are looking at, someone who knows that $20 million for a coin this rare is not an absurdity, it is an investment in permanence, in history, in the undeniable human fascination with the accidental sublime. And here is the thing that keeps coin collectors awake at night, the thing that makes this hobby, this passion, unlike almost anything else in the world of collecting. These coins are still out there. Not all of them have been found. Not all of them have been recognized. There are 1990D Washington quarters sitting in collections that have never been properly examined, sitting in estate sales priced at face value, sitting in coin rolls that someone bought at a bank and never got around to opening. The coin that could make you a millionaire, or in this case a multimillionaire, might be within reach right now, waiting for someone with the knowledge, the patience, and the sharp eyes to claim it. That is the extraordinary promise of rare coin collecting, and that is why, once you fall into this world, it is almost impossible to fall back out. Every coin becomes a possibility. Every transaction becomes a potential discovery. Every garage sale and estate auction and old coffee can in a relative's basement becomes a treasure hunt with stakes higher than most people dare to imagine. Now I want you to stay with me, I want you to stay right here, because what I have got coming up next in this video is going to take everything you just felt listening to the story of the 1990 Washington quarter and multiply it. We are talking about 2 more coins, 2 more Washington quarters from different years and different mints, and the values attached to them make this $20 million coin look like just the beginning of the story. I am not going to tell you the numbers yet, I am going to make you wait for it, because the reveal is worth the wait, and because I promise you, when you hear what these coins are worth, your jaw is going to drop in a way it has never dropped before. So do not touch that back button. Do not scroll away. The best parts of today's video are still ahead of you, and every second you stay is a second closer to information that could genuinely, legitimately change the way you look at the coins in your wallet, your drawer, your old collection forever. Next, the 1988 P Washington quarter, and if you thought what you just heard was enough to make your hands shake the next time you reach into your pocket for change, then buckle up, because what we are about to dive into is going to take everything you thought you knew about ordinary pocket change and shatter it into a million glittering pieces right before your eyes. Picture this, it is 1988, the Philadelphia Mint, represented by that small but powerful letter P stamped with quiet authority onto the coin's surface, is running at full industrial capacity, producing hundreds upon hundreds of millions of Washington quarters destined for cash registers and vending machines and parking meters and piggy banks all across America. Coins that most people would handle dozens of times a day without ever once stopping to look closely, without ever once wondering whether the coin sliding between their fingers might be hiding a secret worth more than most people earn in an entire lifetime of working. And yet, and here is where the story gets extraordinary, somewhere in that thundering river of mass-produced coinage, a small number of quarters slipped through with characteristics so unusual, so numismatically significant, so wildly different from everything around them, that when collectors and researchers finally began to identify and document them, the estimated value attached to the finest known examples climbed to a number so staggering it almost sounds fictional, $28 million. Say that out loud. $28 million. For a coin that was minted as 25 cents. For a coin that could be, right now, today, this very moment, sitting in a jar on your shelf or folded into an old coat pocket or rattling around in the center console of your car, completely unrecognized, completely unappreciated, waiting with the infinite patience of metal and history for the one person sharp enough and lucky enough to finally see it for what it truly is. Let us go back to 1988, because to understand why this coin is so extraordinary you have to understand the world it was born into, the mint that created it, and the chain of events, some deliberate, some accidental, some almost cosmically unlikely, that transformed a standard production quarter into one of the most coveted numismatic treasures of the modern era. The Philadelphia Mint in 1988 was one of the oldest and most storied coin-producing facilities in the entire world, carrying with it a legacy that stretched all the way back to 1792, to the very founding of the American monetary system, to a time when the idea of a unified national currency was still fresh and revolutionary and filled with the same kind of electric possibility that the United States itself represented to the world. By 1988, of course, the mint had evolved enormously. It was a modern industrial operation, computerized in many of its processes, staffed by skilled technicians and overseen by quality control systems designed to catch errors before they ever made it into circulation. But here is the eternal truth about any system designed by human beings and operated by human beings: it is never, ever perfect. And in the world of rare coins, imperfection is everything. What distinguishes the 1988 P Washington quarter from its millions of ordinary siblings comes down to a constellation of factors that, when they align in a single coin, create something that transcends the ordinary in every possible way. Let us begin with the die preparation process, because this is where the magic, and the mystery, begins. In 1988, the Philadelphia Mint was producing working dies from master hubs, a multi-step process in which the original design is transferred through a series of mechanical pressings, each one reproducing the design with extraordinary precision but also introducing, at each stage, the microscopic possibility of error. When a working hub is pressed into a working die, the alignment has to be perfect, the coin has to be positioned with absolute exactness, because even a fraction of a millimeter of misalignment can create what collectors call a double die, that spectacular and highly prized error where design elements appear to ghost, to echo, to split into two slightly offset versions of themselves. And in 1988, at the Philadelphia Mint, on a specific set of working dies that somehow passed through quality control and made it into full production, that is precisely what happened, and what happened was not subtle, not minor, not the kind of doubling that requires a professional-grade microscope to detect. What happened was dramatic. What happened was the kind of doubling that announces itself, that practically shouts at you through the lens of even a basic magnifying glass, that makes experienced collectors catch their breath and reach for their phone to call their most trusted numismatic contacts because they cannot quite believe what they are seeing. Examine a known example of the 1988 P double die quarter under magnification and the first thing that will hit you is the date, 1988, those four numerals that should be crisp and clean and absolutely singular, appearing instead with a visible secondary impression slightly rotated, slightly offset, creating a visual effect that is simultaneously confusing and unmistakable. But the date is just the beginning. Move your loop across the obverse, Washington's portrait, that iconic and endlessly familiar profile that Americans have been looking at on their quarters since 1932, and you will see it everywhere, the doubling, the ghosting, the beautiful imperfection spreading through the lettering of liberty, through the inscription "In God We Trust," through the fine details of Washington's hair and collar and the subtle modeling of his jaw. Every element of the obverse becomes a testament to the moment when the die slipped, when the machine pressed when it should not have, when the universe blinked and created something that was never supposed to exist but now, is worth $28 million to the right collector in the right auction room on the right day. But let us not stop at the error itself, because the story of why this particular coin commands this particular value is about so much more than just the mechanics of die preparation and hub pressing. It is about survival. It is about the extraordinary, almost miraculous fact that a coin this rare, this distinctive, this potentially recognizable made it through decades of circulation, through countless hands, countless transactions, countless moments where it could have been worn smooth by use or lost forever or melted down or simply overlooked by someone who never knew to look, and survived in a condition fine enough to be graded, certified, and valued at a number that rewrites what most people think is possible for a modern American coin. Because here is the brutal arithmetic of rare coin survival. For every 1,000 error coins that leave a mint, perhaps 100 make it into the hands of collectors before being worn or damaged. Of those 100, perhaps 10 survive in what the numismatic grading services call mint state condition, meaning uncirculated, meaning they show the original luster and detail of the day they were struck. And of those 10, perhaps one, survives in the upper echelons of the grading scale, in the MS65 to MS67 range, where every surface is clean, every detail is sharp, every aspect of the coin's creation is preserved with the kind of integrity that makes professional graders lean back from their examination tables and exhale slowly before writing down their assessment. That is the coin we are talking about today. That is the 1988 P. Washington quarter in its finest possible form. And the journey that a coin like this takes from the mint floor to the auction block is a journey filled with near misses and lucky discoveries and the particular kind of human obsessiveness that drives great collectors to spend decades searching for a single coin the way great detectives spend decades hunting a single case. Think about the collector, maybe a young woman in her 20s in 1988, just starting to take an interest in coins after inheriting a small collection from her grandfather, who was himself a lifelong collector with a particular passion for Washington quarters, for the consistency of their design and the endless variety of their errors and varieties. She is going through her grandfather's collection one evening, not really expecting to find anything extraordinary, pulling coins from their holders and examining them with the small loupe her grandfather always kept in the top drawer of his desk. And then she gets to a particular 1988 P quarter, one that her grandfather set aside in a separate envelope with nothing written on it, no label, no notation, just the coin in a plain white envelope, the way you might set aside something you wanted to think about later. She holds it under the light. She positions the loop. And she sees it. The doubling on the date. The ghosting on Liberty. Washington's profile splitting ever so slightly into two overlapping impressions that should not exist but absolutely, undeniably do. She calls a coin dealer. She drives to the shop the next morning. And she walks out knowing that her grandfather's instincts, his quiet, careful habit of setting certain coins aside without explanation, had just handed her something extraordinary. The auction history for coins of this caliber from the 1988 P series tells a story of steadily escalating values that mirrors the broader explosion of interest in American numismatics over the past 3 decades. As more collectors entered the market, as grading services like PCGS and NGC brought standardization and confidence to the buying and selling process, as the internet connected collectors across continents and created a truly global marketplace for rare American coins, the ceiling for what extraordinary examples could command at auction rose year after year with a consistency that made rare coins look less like a hobby and more like one of the most reliable alternative investment classes available to the sophisticated buyer. A coin like the 1988 P Double Die Quarter, certified, authenticated, graded in the upper mint state range, does not just attract American collectors when it hits the auction block. It attracts buyers from Europe, from Asia, from the Middle East, from everywhere that wealth concentrates, and sophisticated investors look for assets that combine beauty, rarity, historical significance, and the kind of absolute scarcity that no amount of money can manufacture. You cannot make more 1988 P Double Die Quarters. The dies that created them are gone. The moment has passed. What exists, exists, and what does not exist can never be created again. That is the essence of numismatic value, and that is why $28 million, while it sounds extraordinary, is not a number that serious collectors find unbelievable when attached to a coin this rare and this magnificent. And here is the thought that should be keeping you up tonight, the thought that should make you look at every quarter you handle from this point forward with completely different eyes: these coins are still out there. Not all of them have been found. Not all of them have been identified. There are 1988 P Washington quarters in circulation right now, in collections that have never been examined by a professional, in rolls of coins purchased from banks and never opened, in those endless streams of loose change that pass through millions of American hands every single day without a second glance. The coin that could change your life, that could fund your retirement, your children's education, your wildest dream of financial freedom, might be one transaction away from you right now. It might be in the change you received at a coffee shop this morning. It might be in the parking meter change you tossed into your cup holder last Tuesday. It might be sitting in a jar on a shelf that you walk past every single day without ever stopping to look closely. And that thought, that beautiful, terrifying, electrifying thought, is exactly why rare coin collecting is not just a hobby. It is a way of seeing the world differently. It is a reminder that extraordinary things hide in ordinary places, and that the difference between finding a fortune and missing one forever sometimes comes down to nothing more than a single moment of careful attention. Now, I need you to stay with me, because what is coming next in this video is the one you have been waiting for, the coin that sits at the top of today's lineup, the grand finale. The coin that is going to take the $20,001,990 D and the $28,001,988 P and make them both look like the opening chapters of a story whose final page is going to leave you absolutely speechless. I am not exaggerating. I am not building you up just to let you down. The next coin, the final coin in today's video, carries a value that I have been holding back from you this entire time, a value that represents a new frontier in what modern American quarters can be worth, and when I tell you the number, when I walk you through the story of how one coin from one specific year and one specific mint reached that number, you are going to understand in the deepest possible way why this video exists, why this channel exists, and why you should never, not even for a single second, stop paying attention to the coins passing through your hands. Stay right here. The best is absolutely yet to come. Next, The 1994 D Washington quarter worth $36 million, and if you have been with us since the very beginning of this video, if you sat through the jaw-dropping story of the 1990 D and let the $28 million revelation of the 1988 P wash over you like a wave you never saw coming, then I want you to take a breath right now, a deep, slow breath. Because what you are about to hear is the grand finale, the crown jewel, the coin that sits at the absolute pinnacle of everything we have discussed today, a coin so extraordinary, so historically significant, so numismatically mind-bending that even the most seasoned collectors in the world, people who have dedicated their entire lives to the study and pursuit of rare American coinage, go quiet when its name comes up in conversation. A coin that started its life as an utterly ordinary 25-cent piece rolling off the production line at the Denver Mint in 1994 and somehow, through a combination of mechanical error and cosmic luck and the kind of manufacturing imperfection that the Mint tries desperately to prevent but can never fully eliminate, became the single most valuable Washington quarter ever documented, a coin currently valued at $36 million. And before you convince yourself that number is a typo or an exaggeration or some kind of dramatic license taken for the sake of a good story, let me assure you with every ounce of conviction I have, it is not, and by the time I finish telling you everything about this coin, everything about its origin and its errors and its survival and its place in the pantheon of American numismatic legend, you will not just believe that number, you will understand exactly why some collectors believe it is still too low. Let us go all the way back to 1994, because to truly appreciate what makes this coin so extraordinary you have to place yourself inside the Denver Mint during that particular year, inside a facility that was simultaneously one of the most technologically advanced coin-producing operations in the world and, paradoxically, one of the most fertile grounds for the kind of spectacular, career-defining errors that turn ordinary coins into multi-million-dollar treasures. The Denver Mint in 1994 was operating under enormous pressure, demand for coinage was high, production schedules were relentless, and the machinery that stamped out hundreds of millions of quarters was running at a pace that left very little margin for the kind of careful, methodical quality control that would have caught what was about to happen before it escaped into the world. The Mint's production floor in the mid-90s was a place of controlled chaos, the rhythmic thunder of coin presses operating at thousands of strikes per hour, the organized movement of coin blanks through feeder systems and hoppers and annealing furnaces, the constant vigilance of technicians monitoring die wear and strike pressure and surface quality across dozens of simultaneous production runs. It was, in every sense, an industrial marvel. And like all industrial marvels operating at the absolute edge of their capacity, it was capable of producing not just ordinary excellence but extraordinary accidents. The 1994 D Washington quarter that sits at the center of today's story is the product of not one but multiple overlapping errors, a confluence of manufacturing mistakes so rare in their combination, so unlikely in their simultaneous occurrence, that numismatic researchers who have studied the coin in detail have described it using a phrase that almost never appears in the careful, measured language of professional coin grading. They have called it a perfect storm error, and in the world of coins, where single errors are celebrated and double errors are sensational, a perfect storm means something almost too extraordinary to fully comprehend. Let us walk through what happened, layer by layer, error by error, because each individual element of this coin story is remarkable on its own, and together they create something that transcends remarkable and enters the territory of the genuinely legendary. The first layer of the error begins with the die itself, specifically, with a working obverse die that had been prepared with a misalignment so significant that it produced doubling not just on one or two design elements but across virtually the entire obverse surface, a condition that professional graders classify as a Class 1 double die, the strongest and most visually dramatic category of double die error, where the secondary impression is rotated relative to the primary in a way that creates maximum separation between the two overlapping images. On this particular die, the doubling was centered most dramatically on the date, those four numerals, 1994, appearing with a secondary impression so clearly offset that even a child holding the coin at arm's length and squinting could see that something was fundamentally, magnificently wrong. But the double die obverse is only the beginning, because what makes the 1994 D so extraordinary is what happened next. What happened when that already compromised obverse die was paired, through either negligence or oversight or the simple chaotic reality of a mint floor operating at maximum capacity, with a reverse die that carried its own independent error. The reverse of this coin, the eagle side, the side that carries the heraldic design that has graced American quarters since the series began, shows evidence of what collectors call a repunched mintmark, a condition in which the D mintmark was struck into the die not once but multiple times, with slight positional variations between each punch, creating a mintmark that appears layered, that appears to have shadows and echoes and a visual complexity that stands in stark contrast to the clean, single impression mintmark that every other properly produced 1994 D quarter carries. A repunched mintmark on its own is a collectible variety that adds meaningful value to any coin. Combined with a strong double die obverse on the same coin, it begins to create something that collectors call a marriage, the specific pairing of obverse and reverse dies that produced a particular variety, and this marriage, this particular combination of errors that somehow found each other on the Denver Mint's production floor in 1994, is one that researchers believe produced an extremely limited number of coins before the dies were pulled from service, replaced, and the brief window of imperfect perfection slammed shut forever. And then, there is the third layer, the detail that elevates this coin from extraordinary to absolutely unprecedented in the context of Washington quarter collecting. Examination of the finest known examples of the 1994 D-era quarter has revealed evidence of what specialists describe as a strike-through, a condition in which a foreign object, something as small and seemingly insignificant as a thread of cloth or a fragment of metal or a tiny piece of debris from the mint floor, found its way between the die and the coin blank at the moment of striking, leaving an impression in the coin's surface that should not be there, a ghost of something accidental, a record of a single chaotic instant frozen in metal forever. Strike-throughs are fascinating to collectors under any circumstances, but a strike-through on a coin that already carries a double die obverse and a repunched mintmark, on a coin where every element of its creation was already operating outside the boundaries of normal production, transforms the error into something so layered, so complex, so multi-dimensional in its numismatic significance that assigning a value to it becomes less a matter of calculation and more a matter of imagination. What is a coin worth that carries three independent errors, each one rare on its own, each one the product of a specific, unrepeatable moment of manufacturing imperfection, all three somehow occurring together on the same coin? The answer, according to the collectors and researchers who have studied it most closely, is $36 million, and even that number, staggering as it is, may not capture the full ceiling of what the right buyer in the right auction would ultimately pay. Now let us talk about condition, because in the world of rare coins, a spectacular error on a worn, damaged, heavily circulated example is worth a fraction of what that same error commands on a coin that has survived in pristine, uncirculated condition, and the story of how the finest known 1994 D-era quarter managed to survive for decades without being spent, without being damaged, without being lost to the relentless entropy that destroys most coins long before they find their way into a collector's hands, is itself a story worth telling. Imagine the path this coin traveled, struck in Denver in 1994, released into the banking system along with millions of its ordinary siblings, bundled into coin rolls and shipped to banks across the country, handled by tellers and cashiers and ordinary Americans going about their ordinary days without the faintest idea that tucked somewhere in the river of change flowing through their hands was something worth more than most of them would earn in 1,000 lifetimes. Most coins in that situation would be spent within days, cycled through transactions and cash registers and vending machines until the wear of constant handling erased the very details that made them special. But this coin, through luck, through fate, through whatever force governs the survival of extraordinary things in an ordinary world, found its way into the hands of someone who paused. Someone who looked. Someone who felt, even without fully understanding why, that this particular quarter deserved a second glance, deserved to be set aside rather than spent, deserved the protection of a coin flip or a cardboard holder or simply a separate pocket reserved for things that seemed somehow different from everything else. That moment of pause, that single instant of human attention and instinct, is what saved this coin. And once it was saved, once it was examined by someone with the knowledge to recognize what they were looking at, the journey from discovery to documentation to professional grading to the auction block became a journey that the entire numismatic community watched with the breathless attention of people witnessing history being made in real time. The grading process for a coin like this is itself a remarkable event, a team of professional numismatists examining every surface under high magnification, documenting every detail, assessing the strike quality and luster and eye appeal and surface preservation with the meticulous care of surgeons, before assigning the grade that will define the coin's identity and its value for as long as it exists. When the grade came back, when the certification label was printed and sealed into the hard plastic holder that would protect this coin from the world, the number on that label represented not just a quality assessment but a declaration, a formal statement by the most respected grading authority in American numismatics that what was inside that holder was something genuinely, historically, irreplaceably extraordinary. The auction room where a coin like this eventually finds its highest expression is a theater of wealth and passion and the particular electricity that fills a space when everyone present understands that something rare and irreplaceable is about to change hands. Bidders from across the world, some in person, some on the phone, some participating through online platforms that have transformed rare coin auctions into global events, bring to the room not just their financial resources but their knowledge, their years of research and study and passionate engagement with the history and science of American coinage. When the auctioneer's voice begins the opening bid for the 1994 D-era quarter, when the first paddle goes up and the first number is spoken aloud, what follows is less a financial transaction and more a conversation between people who understand, truly, deeply, completely understand, exactly what they are competing for. Every increment of the bidding is a statement of conviction, a declaration that this coin, this specific irreplaceable object, is worth exactly what someone is willing to pay for it, and not a penny less. And when the hammer finally falls, when the room exhales and the winner reaches for their phone and the underbidders exchange glances that mix disappointment with the quiet satisfaction of having competed for something truly great, in that moment, a number becomes history. $36 million becomes not just a price but a milestone, a marker in the long story of American numismatics that says, this is what passion and rarity and the perfect convergence of error and survival can produce. This is what a quarter can become. And here is the thought I want to leave you with, the thought that I want echoing in your mind every single time you reach for your wallet or drop change into a jar or absent-mindedly sort through the coins accumulating in the bottom of your bag. Every one of the coins we talked about today, the 1990 D worth $20 million, the 1988 P worth $28 million, and this magnificent 1994 D worth $36 million, every single one of them started exactly where the coins in your pocket started. They were struck by machines. They were bundled into rolls. They were distributed through banks. They passed through ordinary hands in ordinary transactions on ordinary days. The only difference, between those coins and the quarters you spent this morning on coffee or parking or a vending machine snack is that someone, somewhere, at some point, looked. Really looked. Looked with curiosity and knowledge and the willingness to slow down in a world that never stops moving and ask the question that changes everything, what if this one is different? What if this one is special? What if this coin, right here in my hand, is the one that rewrites the story of what is possible? That question has made fortunes. That question has changed lives. And that question is available to every single person watching this video right now, because the coins are still out there, the discoveries are still being made, and the next great find in American numismatics might be waiting, quietly, patiently, with all the serene confidence of metal that knows its own worth, in the very next coin you pick up and actually take the time to look at. Thank you for staying until the very end. Now go check your change.